Hello and welcome back to Whiskey Uncorked, where today we are once again going to be diving back into the 18-year-old single malt category and review one of the more surprising whiskeys I've had in recent memory, the Aultmore 18-year-old. So before we get started, I just wanted to give a big thank you to John from Just Whiskey. He has a YouTube channel here, and he gave the channel a shout out. He's also left some really nice comments under some of my videos, but he gave the channel a nice shout out in his Port Charlotte 18 review, which I highly suggest that you go check out. But I just wanted to say thank you both to him. I saw that the Whiskey Enthusiast, another YouTube channel, has left some comments on my videos recently. I think he found me through the Just Whiskey video, and I'll be responding to those hopefully this evening. And I don't think I ever mentioned it, but Jeff from Jeff Whiskey as well left some really nice comments under my videos a month or so ago, I believe, maybe the Bunnahabhain video. It obviously means a lot, not just to get shout outs and maybe get a bump in subs like I have the last couple days, but it's really awesome when larger channels that have been around a long time not only take the time out to leave encouraging words in the comments, but even take out a little brief amount of time in one of their videos to let their followers know that they found some content that they think that they may like. So I can't possibly say how much I appreciate that. I really look forward to being able to do that someday as well. And if you're not a viewer of Jeff Whiskey, the Whiskey Enthusiast, or Just Whiskey, definitely check their channels out and you'll find some very passionate, very well-informed, and informative reviews of some of our favorite single malts. Additionally, one other announcement is kind of just in case. When this video comes out, it'll be Monday. On Wednesday, I'm actually going to be traveling back to Wisconsin to visit family. I haven't seen them since Christmas. And I will also be picking up a couple bottles of whiskey while I'm there that I've either shipped there or that my brother was able to get for me, including that aforementioned Port Charlotte 18 and Electric 18, which will fit nicely to kind of round out this 18-year-old single malt series that we've been doing. So I know many of our new subscribers have probably checked out that Springbank video already. It's gotten quite a few views for only being out for a couple days, which again, thank you so much for your support there. But just to kind of recap what we're doing here is I've been going through the 18-year-old single malts that either I've had in my collection or that I've really wanted to get or that seemed really interesting or good values. And we've been going through them one per week and at times comparing and contrasting maybe their younger iterations that they may have available on the market. And the reason why we picked the 18-year-old mark is because it seems to be this inflection point, particularly with pricing really starting to ramp up at around that 18-year-old age statement range. So we're really just looking for a pulse check. Like, are they still worth it? What can you get maybe as an alternative to them? How much better are they than their younger counterparts, as I mentioned, if I have those available as well? And just trying to get a better feel. I'm educating myself probably more than anyone else. It's a lot of these bottles. It's my first time having them and I'm just getting to know them. So I have already learned a lot. And if I were to do like my Annock 18 video, which I think was the first one, I would probably have a lot different things to say even now already, just a month or so later. But we've got a few more that I need to do, a handful or so. And then I'm going to do kind of this post-mortem follow-up summary video. Probably it will be posted as a podcast type episode, and I'll have it on Spotify and Apple Music and all that sort of thing. But today, I've been really excited to review this one. So we're following up the Springbank 18, one of my favorite whiskeys, with something that has really surprised me over the last 6 months or so, or whenever I open this particular bottle. So Aultmore is owned by John Dewars. who I think is a subsidiary of like Bacardi. But John Dewar's obviously known for the Dewar's blended Scotch. Uh, so a lot of their whiskey from Aultmore goes into the Dewar's blends. In fact, according to the Malt Whiskey Yearbook, Aultmore only sold 125,000 bottles of single malt, obviously official bottlings. I believe that would have been in 2022. Now, that is an incredibly small number of bottles, and it's reflected in both the 12-year, which my understanding may have been discontinued. I think it was mentioned on, maybe it was the VPub a week or two ago. The 18-year-old is hard to track down as well. In fact, looking around here, I couldn't really find a bottle for sale. And I was checking the UK sites as well, the ones I normally check, and I didn't see it available there either. So we'll get into that a little bit more in a second, but just a little bit more information on this particular bottle. This is Aultmore 18-year-old. It is 46% ABV. We have batch number 481 on the sides, and this is non-chill filtered and natural color. The cask makeup on these is a combination of ex-bourbon and refill sherry barrels. And I can say that is definitely reflective of the taste profile, but we'll get more into that in just a second. In terms of pricing on this, it's a little bit hard to say, but I paid $140 plus tax for this in 2022, and that was in the Denver area. Again, I can't seem to find a really contemporary bottling of this available for purchase. I was able to find one site that looks like it would ship a bottle to me, but they were charging $230 plus tax, plus a pretty sizable shipping charge. So that made it pretty much just a no-go for me. Doesn't matter how good this is, I'm not going to pay $275, $285 for a bottle of this. But according to John Dewar's online store, this bottle sells for 135 pounds, which would include tax. So that would mean this would be somewhere in the $160, $165 range. So anyways, at 135 pounds, probably about $150 shelf price plus sales tax. I wouldn't be surprised with some extra premiums being added on to that for $160, $170 a bottle. So this is definitely getting up there. This isn't kind of getting up there. This is starting to push into that premium range of, like, say, the Bruichladdich 18 that ranges from kind of $170, $190, depending on how lucky you are. But, and then obviously the Port Charlotte being $200 plus. This is starting to creep up there. This is surpassing that kind of $150 price point that seems to be one of the thresholds that companies try not to charge more than that. So it'll be interesting to see if another wave of these does hit the shelves here in the United States. Fingers crossed that they do. It'll be interesting to see what they eventually do get priced at. All right, so as I mentioned, I picked this up back in 2022. I probably opened it late last year. If you haven't noticed by now, I don't always just run home and open my bottles. Sometimes I do. I've been doing that more recently since the channel started. But I had heard a couple good things about Aultmore 18, probably through online channels, and happened to come across one. I don't think I had ever seen one on the shelf before. I happened to come across one and decided that maybe now was my chance to grab one, and I'm happy I did, because I don't see this on the shelf very often here. Now, Aultmore is scheduled to complete a large expansion of their distillery this year. Now, hopefully, eventually, that would mean that maybe we get a little bit more single malt out of them, but given that they're primarily focused on the Dewar's blends, chances are a lot of that, if not all of that expansion, is going into keeping up with future demand. But as I mentioned, when I did finally open this, I knew, hey, this is probably going to be a good whiskey, but I wasn't quite prepared for how much I like this. This is a style of whiskey that, as I've kind of mentioned before, maybe it's kind of in the Glen Murray video or something like that, but I do kind of like a little bit more complex, heavier malts like Springbank and Craigellachie, and even Edradour and Clynelish with its waxiness. I like a really identifiable thing that the whiskey is doing. It's just kind of where I am at the moment. And given this is an 18-year-old Speyside, that is a combination of just some bourbon and refill sherry casks, I wasn't expecting it to blow my mind. let's do some notes and see if it in fact did. All right, on the nose, what are we getting today? So I think the nose, that combination of bourbon and sherry, obviously very light sherry, that would have been my guess. And my nose isn't that good to be able to say, oh, this is this kind of cask and it's that kind of cask. I can tell if something's heavily sherried, and I can tell if something's going to be like a refill bourbon cask. But when you start getting into those blends, I definitely lose some confidence there. But this is kind of very classic bourbon sherry sort of profile. But it's fruity, and it is classic Speyside, but almost pretty. You can get a touch of floral, you get some honeyed apples and peaches, and maybe some lemon. It smells very juicy. The bourbon casks are definitely present, as you are getting some of that, the maltiness, the vanilla is very classic. But as I mentioned, there's some florality, there's a bit of dry grass. There's not a ton of spice on the nose. Maybe some more savory sort of herbs like a thyme or something like that. I'm not super great at picking out those individual herbs. It's something I got to practice at. Now last night, when I was kind of doing just my final little tasting notes, I got one note that was like jumping out of the glass at me that I didn't get before, and I don't think I'm picking it up right now. Maybe ever so slightly, but it was bubblegum. It was just like pink bubblegum with like the white dust on it, like Bubblicious here in the States when I was younger. It's like the big cube of gum. It took me a minute to figure out what it was, and then it hit me. It's like, yep, pink bubblegum. But not really picking that out today, so not sure what was going on. But yeah, let me know if you've ever gotten bubblegum on this whiskey, or any whiskey for that matter. All right, so overall, the nose is nice. It is pretty, but it's really well balanced. All those things that I said, everything's very kind of intricately put together. Not necessarily surprising for a Speysider. It's kind of what they're known for, right? Some, delicate nuance, some honeys and grassiness, and some, orchard or maybe some stone fruits. And that's definitely the experience that I'm having with this overall. So I like the nose. It's not jumping out at me as just something that is like, oh my goodness, but it's a very nice nose that you can just kind of sit with, and you're going to pick out a little thing here and a little thing there. So you're really getting that kind of 18-year-old single malt Scotch experience. But let's find out what it's like on the palate. Cheers. So in this case, the nose is nice and it's pretty, and it translates pretty well. However, it's like you gave each and every one of those elements of the nose a megaphone, and everything is so much more defined, and there's a bunch of things happening at once, but everything's very much in harmony with each other. Sometimes I think I've mentioned, there'll be two weird things happening at the same time, and the question is, are those going to work together or do they not? Like Springbank, they kind of tend to work, but in other whiskeys, it doesn't always work that well, and you just kind of get this weird, disjointed experience. That is not the case with this Aultmore. This is full flavored all the way through. There are a number of sweet notes. There's a number of fruity notes. There are spices. There's a waxiness, honeycomb wax, and a lot of things happening at one time and in perfect harmony. And they're all things that make sense because, as I mentioned, I'm kind of talking a typical Speysider here. All right, I'm gonna take another sip, see if I can make any more sense of that mess. Here we go. The finish on this is just wonderful. So I start talking and it's still doing things. Up front, okay, you're getting some honey, you're getting your vanillas, but they're very rich. They're very high quality gourmet honeys and vanillas. This isn't super, there's no artificiality here. It is rich, it's thick, the mouthfeel is really nice and viscous. It's not like the super oily thing. I don't feel it like coating the back of my lips and like making my whole mouth tingle for minutes on end. but it's like they're the perfect length of time. And then, you know, when you swallow it, you get a really nice crescendo of fruitiness. There's tropical fruits, there's like honeyed apples, there's, you know, maybe stone fruits. There's a bunch of different types of fruit coming out at the same time. It's all very naturally sweet. There's no artificial sweetener here. There's no like confectionery white sugar. This is all real natural, nice ingredients that just get really, really well balanced all around. All right, I'm gonna take one more sip and try to be able to pay attention to that wonderful finish. Here we go. Cheers. That 18 years of wood, there is some oakiness, ever so slight bitterness, really complements everything else well. That honeycomb really kicks in, right? It's not really a waxy whiskey. It is viscous, but that rich, not too sweet honey from like a honeycomb is just delicious. Fruit wise, you get more of those honeyed apples, maybe even a touch of like grilled pears. Not getting a ton of barrel char or anything here, just maybe a little touch here and there. That's why I mentioned like the grilled pears. You're getting your chocolate. Again, it's not a big chocolate bomb. It's not a big honey bomb. It's not a big fruit bomb. It's just everything is just really rich and present and balanced. And then the flavor journey, as from the front of the palate to the back, is fun. It's surprising. And I mean, I love this whiskey. So why was this so surprising to me? Well, it's a lesser known distillery. It's not one that gets talked about a lot. Although the people that have ever mentioned it to me have all been like, yeah, Aultmore is great. Even some of you in the comments have said, I hope you do a review of Aultmore 18. And luckily I had gotten a bottle in the past. So it's not one I had to run out and try to find. This isn't necessarily, at least in my mind and my biases, the type of whiskey or, the style of whiskey that I would just be betting that I'm going to absolutely love. But here I am. This has completely defied my expectations. I expected it to be good based on what I had heard, but I think everyone that had mentioned this completely undersold it. And the reality is, this is the type of whiskey that made me love Scotch to begin with. I love my bourbons and I love my ryes. I even have really begun to love American single malts and all these other great whiskeys that I've gotten to try over the years. But it's whiskeys like this, not specifically this, but that complexity, the richness, the flavor journey. I mean, those are the reasons why I kind of said, bourbon, you're great, but I'm going to spend a small fortune on Scotch instead. Obviously, you can see I still have a decent little bourbon shelf over here, but maybe someday I'll probably do some bourbon videos. We'll see. But that's not the point here. This is just a whiskey this is the reason why people love Scotch, and I think it's the reason why I love Scotch. And it was almost refreshing to get away from the Springbanks. As when you see this, you'll see I did like a Kilkerran 12 Thursday video. Springbank 13 I did a few weeks back, and some heavily peated whiskeys. It's kind of nice to get back to the basics, but at the same time, those basics being just as good as they could possibly be. So for a score, this was a tough one to score, because I think for as much as I'm liking it, I was considering giving it a 9, which is, wow, this is putting it up there with Springbank 18 and Bruichladdich 18. And I'm getting a little bit better at actually being able to kind of express my emotions on camera, because I think even with like the Bruichladdich 18, I don't think I did a good job of like actually communicating how much I was enjoying it. But I'm getting better. I'm brand new at this, so it'll take a little bit of time. And I have to try to sort through these things and say, okay, well, what makes those whiskeys a 9? And the reality is, they are doing things that like nothing else can do. I think when you start to get up into that 9 and 10 category, like not only are they good, but they're doing something that can't be replicated elsewhere. And although I haven't had too many other Speyside single malts with no peat, just some bourbon and some refill sherry, and gotten this level of like, wow, I'm pretty sure that I can find things that are at least in the same ballpark. I still kind of want to give it a 9 out of 10. But I'm trying to be a little bit more judicious with my scores. I think maybe I've slightly overscored a couple things. Don't know. Again, I'm new. I'm still trying to find my rhythm there. And so maybe there's going to be a little bit of a correction. At the end of the day, it's okay. I think if you watch the review, you'll understand how much I really like it or not. But I am going to stick with a somewhat conservative 8 out of 10, which is excellent. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, scoring is my least favorite thing in the world. I just would rather explain it, but I know what the people want. But let's talk about value. That is a major reason why I was doing this series after all, and this one's a little bit more difficult because I don't know exactly what it would cost to get me a bottle these days. And hopefully this whiskey does continue to come over to the US, and this, I won't have to try to get a bottle overseas because there aren't a lot of them. Again, if they're only selling 125,000 bottles globally, that doesn't go super far. Now, if they've discontinued the 12-year, I'm not really sure what that means. I kind of looked around. I couldn't find like a direct confirmation of it, but it might be just in being in the US, sometimes it's like harder to find things that was like a news article in the UK. They don't come up unless you're searching for like super specific things. But if they're discontinuing the 12, I'm not sure what that means for the 18. If I see a 12-year-old, I've put it off. I've seen them in the US, but I just kind of passed it up. And I'm really kind of regretting that and hoping I can still find one on the shelf, even if it's a little dusty. But if we take the John Dewar's website as the correct price at 135 pounds, that's getting pretty high for the UK pricing. It's not completely out of line. I mean, obviously you had, I think the Bruichladdich 18 was 150 pounds, I believe. I think the Port Charlotte 18, I think that was 175 pounds. We've gone over, a Springbank 18, at least the retail price on that is 110 pounds, which is a really great deal if you take the entire picture into account. But this is definitely kind of starting to creep into that higher end. However, this is one of the best 18-year-old whiskeys that I've had while doing this series. The 135 pounds would probably be, actually I might have understated it before. I think it's probably like, would that be like 160 pounds? I think it's like 22%. So it'd be another $20. Yeah, it'd be somewhere $160, $165 for a shelf price. That is pushing it. That is getting pretty expensive. But I'm really enjoying this. So I think it's definitely a bottle that at that price, I would be okay picking up again, provided it wasn't too much more than that. If this comes out at $199.99, the next shipment that the US gets of these, that's going to hurt a little bit. But given that, I think like the Aaron 18 has been kind of creeping up there. I know it's kind of discontinued at the moment. And obviously the Port Charlotte 18, that's a higher ABV, of course. But $200 price point, it's tough. But I'm really hoping that that's not actually what it's at. At 135 pounds, I would probably be picking one of these up, at least occasionally. It might not be something I just have to have on my shelf at all times. I would like to, but that's an expensive whiskey to just replace as soon as you get it, when there are a lot of other things that I'm sure you would like to try, as would I. So I would say value on that 135 pounds is solid, given its quality, and at least for how much I'm enjoying this, I would even say that it's fair in contrast to the rest of the 18-year-old single malts. Now the question is it worth that compared to the 15-year-old age statements, the 12-year-old age statements, et cetera, et cetera? And that's a much more complex problem that I don't know if I've solved yet. With this, not having tasted the 12 isn't super cheap. I think it was like $65. So if this is coming out at 6 extra years and almost $100 more. Again, that's some fuzzy math, but I'll save some of that ranting maybe for the after I fully educate myself after going through all the bottles I plan on reviewing here, and in my postmortem, we'll kind of see exactly where this bottle lies in the landscape of whiskeys, at least that I was able to try and review for this particular series. But with that, I am going to wrap this video up. And again, I would like to thank all of you for tuning into this channel. It has been a hectic few months. I really started in earnest, kind of in, I think the Springbank 10 review went up like February 2nd. Obviously, I have videos before that, but really kicked off around then. And here we are, February, March, and halfway through April. And man, it's been fun. I'm looking forward to hopefully having a week off here and just have some fun with family and drink some good whiskey with my brother. The NFL draft is going on. So, you know, we'll see how that chaos shakes out. But until then, thank you again for watching. Thank you for liking, commenting, and subscribing on the channel below. Until next time, cheers.